Oh, baby tortoise track. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wild Earth this afternoon, and welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. I know you're looking into the light, and I'm probably a little bit shadowed, but we are heading west, and we're heading west for a reason. My name is Mark, and Jason is on camera with me this afternoon. And Scott and Viam are heading out in another direction, and we'll join them shortly, and we'll see what they're going to find. But I had to come this way now because there were reports that 5 minutes or 10 minutes, within 10 minutes of our end of drive this morning, the Queen of Djuma made an appearance right here, exactly where we are, and I've been expecting to find her tracks. However, there's been an unfortunate incident, unfortunate maintenance. The one day that anyway, the tractor's been dragging the road to smooth the road, so all the tracks are wiped out. She didn't go up Aubrey's Road, we know that. But anyway, she was here this morning. We're going to look around and see if we can find anywhere where she went. So new surface, telling me that there's been at least 4, maybe 6 vehicles even up and down this road since the tractor dragged it with the tires. Very few animals crossing the road. There's the squirrel tracks. So we're not going to be able to find any of her tracks right now. Oh, big snake tracks. Snake went that way. Well, I hope you're all having a great Monday. Some of you in New Zealand and Australia are probably middle of the night heading into Tuesday already, but a lot of you maybe behind time. Welcome to Djuma. It's our Monday afternoon live safari. And it would be great to hear from you this afternoon. Nikki's in final control, doing a fantastic job. Jason and I were here this morning. We were doing circles around Vuyatela Lodge because we know that Karula was holed up somewhere at Vuyatela Lodge overnight. She did something there, or she just stayed in the lodge, stayed somewhere. And there has been this herd of impala. There was a big herd of impala here this morning, and look, here's a small group of them. Not many, which tells me that the herd has been split up, and it couldn't have been too long before Karula was seen on Vuyatela Access Road coming this way. It was maybe an hour before then that we saw impala here, the whole herd of impala in fact, that were here on the left hand side at Sandy Patch, and they all ran over to the right. And it's very unusual to have just a very small group of females like this, especially knowing that there's a big herd of impala that live here, and they normally stick together. They have to stick together, and the only reason why they would be split up is because that maybe there was some attempt on their lives, or one of them. Some really incredible cloud formations. It's been a strange, almost summertime type of day. It started off very cool with cloud. The sky opened up, and right now there's a lot of cumulus. Actually, I'm going to turn around because it's going to be easier for us to have a look. But I would like to, throughout the afternoon, just keep track of what's happening with the sky. And also I want to look around, see what that might be that has forced these impala to spend some time on their own. Hello girls, boys, no boys, just a few females and a couple of lambs. So there's a very good chance that Karula might have made an attempt at the herd. Sorry Jason, just looking at the cloud now that's coming up from the south. In fact, it's moving in from the southeast. If I can look at the the angle of these clouds, you can see they sort of angle to the southwest. And my guess is that the front moving in from the southeast. But we'll keep track of where they're all going. That one over there is very interesting.
The dark one?
Yes, well that one is actually dropping rain at the moment, but it's more the top of that cloud that's interesting for me.
That one?
Yes, right there at the top of that beautiful bubbling pillar of marshmallow. There's a little cap on it, like a yamuka. That's probably ice crystals at an exceptionally high altitude, sort of where the top of clouds reach, and it gets so high and so cold up there that it starts freezing. It's pushing into that cold zone, making like a little dome. Very interesting. We're going to watch that later. Right now, I'm going to take the trip around Aubrey's Road and do a loop, because this is I think this is one of the only roads that might have been dragged today with these giant tractor tires. There are a lot of people that drive themselves to Vuyatela Lodge. Not only local South Africans that book the camps, either Galago or Vuyatela, and it is a self-drive option. But there are also international people who fly into South Africa and they hire a car and they drive themselves through the country. And since Vuyatela is fairly close to the Gowrie gate of the Sabi Sand, some people do drive in, and it's important that the lodge maintains the road in a good enough condition for the ease of access for their guests. It kind of gets a little bit corrugated through the dry season, and just after a little bit of rain, when right now, perfect time to do it. Hello, Drongo. But of course it means that every track on the road is a track from the last couple of hours, and it was Karula was here before this happened. I'm hoping that we can maybe go down Aubrey's Road and find some of the tracks. Can you see that monarch?
No.
Just right there.
Oh. They fly in squares.
Yes. African monarch butterfly. Let's sneak closer. Opening its wings for solar radiation, for solar power. So we're looking at it side on with its wings open, and its wings are open flat because what it is doing is it's not only... Is it gone?
Yep.
Because the wind blew. And it wasn't really prepared for that. The wind actually probably took it off because its wings were open. But what they do when their wings are open like that is that the veins in the wings that have blood supply heat up, and of course it heats up the body and it gives them a lot of energy. When you look at a lot of insects, their lives have more function, or rather they perform more of function in the ecosystem as a larva than they do as adults. I think butterflies are just there for us to recognize how pretty nature can be, because as adults they just get really good, try and produce more caterpillars to feed on the plants that they're designed to feed on.
Don't they pollinate?
Oh, they do, most certainly, as adults. They do pollinate. In fact, moths are more pollinators maybe than butterflies.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, what was that? Big stick. If you're wondering why I'm hitting myself in the face because of flies. Tiny little one. Yeah, I can see Karula's tracks. She walked down here. So we don't have to worry about the dragging of the road going up that way. She walked straight up here, Aubrey's Road, going north. Karula, the queen of Djuma. And I'm going to try and find a track that we can show you, and maybe I've got a centimeter rule. So many times we get asked, how do you tell the difference between a male and female track, or how do you tell the difference between individual tracks? And well, animals are so distinctively unique, so unique in their makeup, that if you had to measure things, you can almost identify a cat by the size of its track, because there's not much chance that another cat is going to have the same size track in the same area. But she's got surprisingly small feet compared to her boy. Because that's got signal is jumpy because the antenna's not too straight. Signal should be at its best right now. Scott, come in. Okay, copied, I'll try. I do have Karula's tracks on Aubrey's heading north, by the way, although I think I've just lost them. Joe in New York, sorry, flies. Hi Joe, sorry, I'm just getting out to have a look at some tracks, but Joe in New York was asking if the monarch butterflies migrate like they do in the US. And no, they don't. The African monarchs actually stay here, they stay all year round, they don't migrate at all. We do have a couple of migrating species of butterflies, but the African monarchs are not one of them. And I'm going to get back to that shortly. I just want to see if I can find some sign of where she might have left the road, or she's come back to the road a little bit further ahead. I'll be back shortly. Came back to the road. So she's still walking. She was. Unfortunately, the tracks are quite fresh, but I know from what was sent to us as a message from Mike was that she was walking up there around about, well, it was before 10 this morning, which would have put her here sometime just after 10. So it's also been a day when she might have found a place to rest. I need to be careful now, because she did come back onto the road. Looks like she might have turned onto that termite mound on my right and come back onto the road. And I'm going to try and find a spot where it might be easy as the afternoon wears on. With this light might be a place where I can find a track to show you, because nice shade there. But she could also be a mile or 2 miles further on, whatever direction she's chosen to walk in. So, need to find some soft sand where she's stepped with some light. Sounds like the waterhole cam is up, and it would be nice because Scott and VM, I have to say, Scott and VM and Pete, via Pete or through Pete and Alex, I think mostly Pete, remotely, between them have managed to get the camera back up today, quite a feat, because there was a lot of excitement. VM and Scott got the camera up. Were you there too?
I was there.
Oh, Jason was there too. I'm ashamed to say they sneaked off and did it without me, and so I can't claim any responsibility, or rather any fame, for getting the cam back up, but I think it's up. And if there are those of you that are zooming at the moment or in line to zoom, zoomies, let us know how it's looking. Everything's working fine. Buffalo, nyala, and a grey heron. Right, let's see. Maybe here I can. No, there's no sunlight. Need sunlight to show you her tracks, but she's still walking off on the road. But it's been earlier today. Let's see, maybe here's a track I can show you. There are tracks. I don't know how it will pan out. Been asked several times by some of the viewers to please show some of the tracks, so I'm going to try something now. I'm going to park off here to the right so that Jason can point down to more or less into the light. I'll try to point the track out to you. Can you find one yet?
Give me a second. Oh, that's tiny.
That one's very faint.
Where's the other one you circled?
Okay, I want to see what that looks like now. Oh, it's hard. It's really hard because you can see there's a tire track. That one's got a piece of grass in the way, but that one you can make out quite nicely. You can see two of the toes on the left. You can't really see the two right toes and the back of the pad. Okay, now I can see what it looks like on camera when we zoom. I'm going to try and find better ones. And then one of my books, I think it's probably my tree book. One of my books has a measurement thing in it that I can put next to the track, and we can measure it and get an idea of her front and hind foot, whether it's left or right. The idea is we need to be a little bit more to the side of the track to be able to see it. Ooh, that's a nice one. We're following wildebeest tracks. Also, the other thing is that the camera is a little bit high. The camera needs to be a little bit lower. So let's try. That's interesting.
Next to the tongue is...
Look here. Can you see this one?
This chair's just in the way. If you move back a centimeter.
Really?
That's not even a centimeter.
That's actually the male cheetah from yesterday. Yeah, it's cool. Oh, here's an interesting. Oh. A little bit too close to the side of the car, but what I've also noticed is that this is also the track of that male cheetah that's in the same place as Karula's track. A little bit too close to the car, so if we go a little bit back, a much more elongate track than a leopard, but also very distinct points to each toe, which are the claws of the cheetah. And this is where he must have come at some point after we saw him 2 nights ago. Anyway, so we're getting close to the fire break, and we're getting close to Biffles of Cutler. Probably see tracks better when we get to that big junction, because then we've got a sand road heading to the west. The most ideal way to look at tracks is looking at them directly into a low sun, so either in the morning or in the evening. Thank you. Some white crowned helmet shrikes that were here. We saw some this morning. Now the question is, where did both of these cats go? I just want to have a look again. Nothing. Nothing going down the pathway. Nothing at all. I'm going to build a cut line and try and find something. But I was hoping that maybe I could even find tracks of both the cheetah and the leopard almost together. Might be able to do it down on back on Aubrey's Road where we've come from. Sorry Nikki, the other radio interrupted. There's a terrapin what? Okay, well let's go see what the terrapin's doing. Let's go and see what Scott's up to. And I'm going to see if I can find some tracks for us this afternoon. See you in a little while.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome on board. Myself and VM, who's on camera with me this afternoon, have found this interesting sighting, which we couldn't help but stop and enjoy. It really is strange how what is potentially such a dangerous animal to us as humans can be so tolerant of that tiny little terrapin sitting on its back, and perfect weather for the terrapin to be sunning itself. It's basically lying on top of a big solar panel. That black hide of the buffalo must be attracting some great warmth from the sun, and that in turn is charging up the little terrapin's battery pack, I guess you could say, because it is important for them to be warm in order to be able to move around. So, myself and Nikki enjoyed a morning off this morning, so I had a bit of a line, but then did go out on an adventure this morning to see if we could find anything interesting, and we went to Buffalo's Hook Dam and saw the big crocodile there, which was great. I really love him, or her, not sure whether it's a male or a female, but so happy that there is that crocodile around now. And we saw quite a few elephants, and depending on what Mark does and where he ends up on, after he's decided what to do with Karula's tracks, and I hope he finds her, but if not, he may be interested in following up on some of the elephants, so we'll just keep in touch. But the plan now is to head across to Twin Dams, and I am making a little bit of a habit of checking the water holes to start with, and they have just been so productive for us that it is worth continuing to check them, because it's a method that has been working for us over the last few weeks as the vegetation has started to dry up, and as well as a lot of the smaller ponds and water holes have started to dry up. It forces animals to now move bigger distances and therefore concentrate more heavily around the water sources. We've been busy during the day getting the Djuma waterhole camera fixed up. So if you haven't heard already, the live cam at the Djuma waterhole is back up and running. So do log into that, and I'm so happy it is up and running, because for us it just provides us with such useful information. Sometimes it's when we're on drive, or a lot of the time it's between the drives when animals may come and go from the waterhole, and then we start the drive with updates of what's been seen there. It is so helpful for us. So that was a good midday mission for us between the drives to go out and get that sorted, and thankfully VM is the most technically minded of the crew here, so it was him mainly steering the ship in the right direction, and between VM and Peter Braat in Cape Town they've managed to get it up and running. Now, if you are interested in looking at a video that we made of the resurrection of the live cam today, we just did a short little video which is quite fun of us setting it back up. Nikki will be posting that on my Facebook page shortly, so it's quite a funny video of us behind the scenes, and if you'd like to have a look at that, feel free to look on my Facebook page, Scott Dyson Safaris. There are several dams to the north and to the east of that dam, but we don't have access onto those properties, so we don't know exactly where it could have come from or where there were crocodiles of a similar size to it that we could maybe assume have moved. But it is incredible to believe that it would have been covering fairly large distances, I would say at least a mile or two, just through the open bushvelds in order to get to Buffelshoek Dam. And you could only imagine how wonderful it must feel being a crocodile that's been out of water for so long to eventually find what you're looking for. I'm also very interested to know, Sherry, whether that crocodile returns to Buffelshoek Dam every year or every few years.
A band of scar, one scar that sort of crosses his neck, almost as though, well, I don't know, where he stood. And I promise you, you cannot get any idea how tall a giraffe is until we do something like what we just did, because when the two photographs were compared, or when they were superimposed, it looks like he's bending down for something. I don't know if the water extends to where he is. It could do. I've never really been across there. We were down there one day with the, I think it was the Salatis, not the Matembas. We were invited to follow them. I think it was the Salatis that chased the Matembas. Two big males from Manyaleti, big male lion. Well, both Karula's tracks and cheetah tracks came this way. Unfortunately, the road that I was hoping to find tracks on is also a road that has been smoothed and resurfaced, or its surface has been smoothed over. I can't find either of their tracks, but I won't stop looking. Going down to the main body of the dam. Very vulnerable time for giraffe to go down to the water in the open like this, even though he's a very big bull and ordinarily there wouldn't really be any predators for him. But there are lions that specialize in big giraffe. I've seen lions that have learned how to hunt giraffe, and there are some lions that are likely to do so at their most vulnerable. A giraffe in water is no good. A giraffe flounders in water. Look at this. Okay, we're going to be quiet now for this wonderful scene of welcome to Africa, everyone. Some people are commenting how low the water is from the last time. So most certainly all of the dams, all of these water holes, the evaporation and saturation, well, the water is disappearing fast. Excuse me a moment, I just need to talk on the radio. Station at Sydney's Dam. Taxon, come in. Hey, Belenga. Are you at Sydney's Dam? Okay, copy. Yeah, firm. Okay, text. Kwanzaa for Karula heading up Aubrey's. I haven't found anything crossing, but it looks like they've dragged this road today. I believe she was seen at around 10 o'clock this morning heading up Warriors Access, and then she turned on to Aubrey's. Also, that's Kankan heading north on Aubrey's from, I think, maybe yesterday morning. Go ahead, Nikki. Okay. I took Aubrey's. Okay, copy Orbs. Sharon was asking about the giraffe when he drinks. Is it true that there's a valve in his neck that closes? It's not really a singular valve, Sharon. What it is that when they do bend down, whether it's for drinking or picking things up off of the ground, veins, arteries and veins that do feed the head with blood have restricting valves that limit the blood flow. They don't close it off entirely, but they do limit the pressure and the blood flow to the head, because you have to imagine that a giraffe's head being so high up as it is, look at that, we still see him, and he's probably right now at least, I'd say, 400 yards. What do you say? 300, 400 meters?
I agree with you totally.
Oh, good. Dare you otherwise. Anyways, that's the last we're seeing of him. A wonderful sight. Yeah, sometimes we don't have to be close to animals. Sometimes it's just nice to see everything from a distance. But Sharon, the immense pressure that it takes for a giraffe's heart to pump blood through to the head has to be slowed somewhat when they put their head lower than their heart. Otherwise, there's a chance of, well, it just becomes excessive. So yes, there are valves that limit the blood flow and that do slow it down, or at least prevent damage to the brain, excessive blood flow. Magnificent bull, the way I have to say. Probably one of the most amazing bulls we'll see. Interesting observation from Marianne. on Twitter, sending us a tweet. You want some guarri, you guys? It's not the right shape. Let's try another one. One of these round guarris. Get the round branches. Mariana's noticing that every time they drink, giraffes sort of flip their head and throw water ahead of them. I can only imagine what might be happening there. I'm just trying to get some fly swishes. Pardon?
Yeah, this one. Or another one.
Or another one.
Yeah, let's grab another.
I'll stick with my Tandafolia leaf now. Find a guarri later. What we're doing is it's just a swish. Because the last couple of weeks we've been inundated with tiny little fairies, fairy flies. These miniature domestic flies that insist on getting into your ears and your nose and your mouth and your face. Anywhere else on my body but my face. Sorry. Look, we need to review the afternoon's thunder shower activity. And looking south from where we are right now, some interesting build-up of cloud. That peak that we saw, that was probably peaking at 30,000 feet, that had the ice cap earlier, that whole thing has collapsed. It has moved over the escarpment. There's this guarri bush just in front of us now, blocking the view. But that is at where Jason is pointing the camera now. You can see it's a very dark. What it is that whole thing is now flattened and it's raining itself out. Probably about 10-15 miles to the west. So that whole pinnacle that was developing, that was going so high, has actually collapsed as it lost water underneath. And we're going to be seeing those other ones down south building up and coming closer as we approach sunset. Well, most of the animals move out of the Sabi sand when the water is gone. Lynn. Hi Lynn. Lynn is calling in from Michigan. Nice to hear from you, Lynn. Welcome to our drive today. Well, most of the animals move out of the area when the water dries up. If and when the water dries up. I think so, yes. There are some animals that will remain. They'll have to find their way to other water and then come back to their grazing areas, because wherever the last water remains, the pressure around wherever that water might be, whether it's a much bigger dam than we have here at Djuma, you can imagine that if water holes here on Djuma and elsewhere start drying up, the more the water holes dry up, the more pressure is applied to some of the more permanent water points that last longer through the dry season. And that pressure means that some animals, some of the less dominant animals from other areas will maybe have access to that water to drink, but they're going to have to trek quite far. Right, so off we go. Another direction, however. Let's see where it's going to take us. Beautiful sky. I'm sure we're going to get some more views of it later on. If the storm that is in the west moves over the sun when it's setting, it might create quite a nice effect. Quite a remarkable sunset. Copy, let me know when you're on cross. Christine's asking if the flies bite when they land. No, these particular flies, Christine, these are little buffalo type flies. These little flies that we have that are quite predominant at the moment, they are ticklish. It's more, not that they're biting flies, in fact they don't at all. They just get so ticklish.
I prefer if they bit us than if they just did this little crawling thing.
No, I don't think so. Because I've been in places where they're biting flies, and they're tsetse flies, and tsetse flies have got a sense of humour. They bite you at the most inopportune moment. And you see, the one thing about some biting flies, like if we look at mosquitoes essentially are biting flies. And what happens when a mosquito bites you is the first thing that it does is it injects a little local anesthetic. And then you don't feel the proboscis, you don't feel its mouth parts drilling into you and sucking your blood. That's why a mosquito bites. But a tsetse fly, which is about 100 times bigger than the mosquito, so its proboscis and its drill, this drill bit, we talk about boreholes and drilling wells in land. Can you imagine the same thing compacted into the size of a horsefly that drills into you, and it doesn't have an anesthetic? Boy, it's like a hot pin going into you. And some of the times when I've had tsetse flies that just happen to get me at the wrong moment, it's like on the baby toe when my foot is on the clutch and I'm going down a very steep embankment or up a very steep embankment or something, and it gets me on the toe with my foot on the clutch or my foot on the brake. And of course the natural reaction is to lift the foot, and of course you can't do that when you're in extreme four-wheel drive mode going through riverbeds and crocodile infested waters. So I'll take these little flies any day, but they just become a nuisance. It's ticklish beyond words. And I don't know, maybe it's just me personally, but I can't even handle my own hair in my face, let alone flies. I think I could have beetles and spiders and praying mantises, larger insects. Any large insect, happy to have it walking on my face. But it's these tiny little flies. I'm going to find one for you. I need to put it on Facebook actually. I've had jumping spiders and a robber fly catching these little flies on the vehicle. In fact, the other day we had a robber fly caught one. I don't think we were live at the time. No, we weren't. But I took some. We were, but I managed to get some really nice close-up photos of it, and it's pretty amazing, really. Because if I could just train some robber flies. Robber flies are these much bigger flies that eat flies. In fact, they are specialists in these tiny little flies that bug me to death. So I have robber flies swarming all over us. Maybe I can show you on my screen what a robber fly looks like. I think I might be able to do that. Before I put it on, I'll put it on my Facebook page. But I think I've got a picture of it that I haven't downloaded yet. I might be able to show you. They're wonderful creatures. Them robber flies and dragonflies are wonderful things that if you have them around you most of the time, they'll eat anything that comes near you, mosquito or fly. Buffalo, elephant, buffalo. There we go. I even got it on Jason's knuckle. Let's see. Best photo I've got of this. There. one of. That was on Jason's knuckle. I was trying to get it in a position where it was... Okay, maybe... I don't know how close we can get to you, but I'm going to try.
Go a little bit further, otherwise I can't focus on it. There we go. That's the one.
There's a robber fly on Jason's knuckle with one of these little flies in its jaws. Alright, I'll try for just another one quickly. When it was back on the dashboard. Yeah, we were sitting with hyena in the water and with the buffalo. I think the best ones were on Jason's knuckle actually. Oh, that one's quite good. That was on the steering wheel. Every time I got the camera close to it.
There you go.
Yeah, you can see it's got it by the throat. It's like a leopard killing an impala almost. Oh, and then light reflecting. Anyways, from the flyer with the fly to let's go and see what Scott's up to. It's time to see what Scott's up to. I'm going to carry on seeing what I can find for you this afternoon, and I'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, and we've got seriously lucky with the crocodile this afternoon, because as you can see he's completely out of the water, and I'm hoping we've just got you. We took a while to get into position in order to be able to get this frontal view of him. We usually park the vehicles on the side of the dam where he's lying. It is one of our kind of areas that we can easily get access to, and I'm guessing he may well open his mouth in order to help thermoregulate as he does bask in the sun. It is fairly common behavior for them, and as VM pans out you've got an idea of where we are at Buffelshoek Dam. We are on the side of the dam where we were looking across at Quarantine just a few days ago when you was looking at the Inyala that we're drinking, and we were parked basically where that crocodile is now when we were viewing Quarantine. Now, other than the croc, there's one or two buffalo bulls here. There's tracks of elephants that have come past here since I was here this morning, but no sign of any elephants on the way in this afternoon, which is interesting because this morning there were so many in this area, not at the dam itself but in the surrounding areas. So I was hoping to find some here. Having said that though, the vegetation in this area is very thick and they could well be close by, and I think if we do invest some time here this afternoon we are almost certain to get some elephants coming to drink. We've just got an interesting comment from Inga in the Netherlands. Good afternoon, Inga, and thanks so much for sending through this information. Inga said she remembers seeing a crocodile a few years ago on a previous Wild Earth broadcast that was missing the end of its tail. Now that's a very good characteristic that we could look for, but sadly we do not have a good angle to see the end of its tail here, but it is something that we certainly can keep an eye on, and that way potentially know if it is the same crocodile. So thanks so much for sending that info through, Inga. Question from Donna on Twitter. Good afternoon, Donna. Donna's interested to know how big this crocodile is. Now, I'm just under 6 foot in height, and if I were to lie next to it, I think it would be longer than me. So I'm guessing it's around 8 or 9 feet in length. In terms of weight, I'd guess it's around 300 pounds, give or take, and that's just a guesstimate. They do get far larger than this, crocodiles, in various areas of Africa, and even here in the Sabi Sands I have seen crocodiles considerably larger than this. Some up to 20 feet plus, so you get some mammoth crocodiles out there in different parts of Africa, but not so much here. I consider this to be a beautiful big croc there, and so fortunate and happy that he's decided to come and reside here in Buffelshoek, and I hope he decides to spend the whole winter here, because I'm sure if we spend enough time here we will get to witness some incredible interaction and viewing from this crocodile. Especially as the water does dry up and there's more intensity and pressure put on the water hole, it will add a very interesting dynamic to what goes on here. We've just got another interesting message through from Teresa, and Teresa's provided us with some information saying that there was also a crocodile with a chunk of its tail missing that was filmed on the Idubi water cam. Now Idubi is a camp in the southern Sabi Sands, and it's a long way off from here. That's not to say that it's not possible that this crocodile has not made the journey. There are many stop-off points where it could move from waterhole to waterhole. It would have had to cross the Sand River in order to get here, and would have been able to reside there for some time if it desired to. So it could well have travelled that far, and I simply don't know enough about the habits of crocodiles in this area to be able to confirm whether such journeys have been made. But we'll certainly keep an eye out, and thankfully with the footage that would have been archived from that waterhole cam, I'm sure we'd be able to accurately identify if we do get the right angle on this specific individual's tail. But already interesting, I wonder if Inga's crocodile with a chunk missing out of its tail has the same chunk missing as Teresa's crocodile, because maybe we've got two crocodiles with chunks out of their tail, which already indicates that it could be a difficult characteristic to use if they're all missing chunks of their tail, unless it's a very specific part, of course. Now that the sun has just peeked out over the cloud, it's going to be very interesting to see what it does. I don't think it is quite hot enough for it to be opening its mouth in order to cool down, but let's see if the sun shining on it has any impact on its behavior. We've just got a question through from Larry, and afternoon Larry. Larry's interested to know what are the differences between the Nile crocodile, which is what we are viewing now, and American alligators. So the differences that I know of is that the fourth canine on the upper mandible of a Nile crocodile protrudes out the side of its mouth, so you'd be able to visibly see it. If we could zoom in any closer, we would see the fourth mandible canine pointing out of the side of the crocodile's mouth, kind of to the side of its bottom jaw, whereas with alligators that's not the case. Oh, there he's doing it. Or was that just a yawn? No, it's time to thermoregulate because he's getting a little bit too hot, and so lucky that he has started to do this. Now, I'm looking on my monitor and it's difficult to tell, but there is a difference in their dental structures basically, the Nile crocodile and the alligator Larry. And the head of an alligator is also more kind of, not robust, but stout and more bulky, whereas the Nile crocodile's head's a little bit thinner and less bulky than that of an alligator. So they do appear quite differently. If you were to have them lying next to one another, they'd be clearly different. Other than that, I'm not too sure of many other differences, Larry, so that's all I've got for you. What I can tell all of you, though, is I certainly wouldn't want to end up in between those jaws. Judy in California, good afternoon. Judy's asked a very relevant question, especially now that he's got his mouth wide open, and she's interested to know, how often do crocodiles need to eat? Now, there's a lot of variables relating to that. A lot would depend on where that crocodile lives. For example, in areas where the dry season can be very intense, crocodiles will estivate, which is basically they go into dormant physical states, and often they'll move into caves that they've excavated and actually lie on top of one another, and they turn their body off basically in order to reserve energy, and they go into a very, very deep sleep for up to 6 months until the next rains come. When those rains do come, there's a bounty of food, from fish to animals coming down to drink at the water holes, so they cash in on a lot of feeding in a short period of time and then don't need to feed for 6 months. Here in the Sabi Sands, it's probably a little bit different. It's still warm enough for them in winter to be able to hunt, but they will certainly be more active in the summer. So it's fair to say that crocodiles will consume more in the hotter months of the year than the colder months. How much they consume a lot will depend on how lucky they are. This guy the other day we saw eating 3 small terrapins within the space of 15 minutes. But if, for example, he managed to take down a bigger prey like an impala, then that would fill its belly for a long time, and like a lot of the other reptiles, they can then go and relax and digest that food for weeks and weeks or months and months, depending on how big the kill is. So there's lots of variables, but they can go for months without food, Judy. So, as I was saying for the differences for Larry's question, I think Nikki's just said somebody sent some more info through, and it'll help explain. I wasn't terming it correctly. And the alligator's head is more bulky and broad, was a better word to use, and also more kind of triangular in shape. More of an equilateral triangle, you could say, whereas this is a very acute triangle, that of the Nile crocodile. So the alligator's head is far bigger and broader, even up until the snout. Just got a question through from Diane. Good afternoon, Diane. And Diane's interested to know whether this croc would ever have a go at any one of these big buffalo. And this croc's not big enough to take down one of these big buffalo bulls, but I'm sure larger crocodiles would potentially try and take down fully grown buffalo. And I have seen crocodiles attacking baby buffalo here in the Sabi Sands. It was quite interesting. The crocodile actually caught onto a medium-sized buffalo calf, and the calf started letting off its loud bellowing call, which they do when they are in distress. And there was a male lion nearby that ran in to hear what the commotion was about, and then there's a tug of war between the male lion and this big crocodile for this poor buffalo calf. So they will certainly hunt buffalo, but not fully grown ones, and they would therefore need a herd of buffalo to pass through this area, and they'd be able to target one of the smaller individuals. But it is interesting, Nikki's just reminded me that when myself and her came out here the other day between drives to have a look at the crocodile for the first time, there was a buffalo that was very, very cautious of the crocodile and was staying quite well away from the water's edge. And maybe it's because that buffalo was used to being at this dam but not used to seeing the crocodile. But they will certainly have a healthy respect for the crocodile, even though I think it's simply not big enough to be able to overpower one of these big guys. Well, the only problem is about where we are parked now is about the only thing we can see is this little window where the crocodile is. So animals could be coming to drink. I'm trying to peer around as much as I can, but animals could be coming and going without us even knowing. As you can see, we are parked in a bit of a thicket here, and it is going to be a beautiful sunset out to the west. So that's something to look forward to, and hopefully either Mark or myself are in a good spot at some stage. And Nikki's just saying that you did have some beautiful shots of the clouds and that western horizon a bit earlier with Mark and Romeo on camera. So that's good news. Now, what should we do? I don't think this crocodile is going to get up to too much. Well, I mean, it could at any given moment, and as I say that, it's just opened its mouth again. So let's have one last look at those teeth and its mouth. And see what it does next. What are your plans, mister? I would love to see what happened if a pride of lion came down to drink. What would happen between them? It would certainly be make for some great viewing, and hopefully it won't be long until the Kuhuma pride of lion come back to this dam. They often do pass by here to drink. I personally haven't seen them here drinking yet, but we've often followed their tracks of them passing through here. And hopefully in one of these coming days they're going to come back onto the property. And they are hanging out just to the north of us, so we are aware of their movements, and all 8 of them are together to the north of us. Grace has just asked whether there's any animals that will prey on crocodiles, and yes, Grace, there certainly are, especially when they are newly hatched. From birds to monitor lizards to lions, leopards, all predators will feed on baby crocodiles when they get the opportunity to, and the success rate of young crocodiles is very low. It would be interesting to know how many siblings this individual had and how many of them have made it to this stage. Probably very, very few. And like I say, it's in their first few weeks and months of life that you'll probably find most of them don't make it, because they are small and therefore vulnerable. And the smaller you are, the more predators can feed on you generally, and you seldom find a predator that rejects a meal because it's too small. Any meal that's easy, big or small, will be considered a lucky meal. So that puts baby crocodiles high up on the menus of lots of predators. Well, I think we're going to reposition, and we can cut across to Mark and see what he's been up to. I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve for you. So let's go over to Mark, and we'll try and reposition and see what else we can find at the dam here.
Copy. Been following this herd of kudu across quarantine. They're about to enter into this drainage line on the western side of quarantine. They are listening to some squirrels behind us that are alarming, but now that they're moving closer to cover, they're a little bit less concerned with the alarm calls that I'm hearing from south of us. Nice little group of kudu cows, and there is a young bull with them. But a beautiful scene. As they head back from Gari Dam, I'm sure you might have seen them at the dam. Very healthy kudu cows. The largest antelope that we get here at the moment. The only thing bigger than them really is the eland. Taller than a wildebeest, but I think you might find some big bull wildebeest will probably be a bit heavier. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here next to us, and there's another cow up there with the bull, 7, 8 maybe. The bull is still under a lot of terminalia, a lot of this, the silver cluster leaf. She's got a Y. There's one with an X. She's got a tuning fork on her front stripe. He's not an exceptional bull. He's still got a little bit of growing to do. Probably only about a 4 or 5 year old, if that. Horns are pretty much fully twisted at about 6, and then of course they get thicker and a bit longer. I'm not sure if he's one of the bulls that we've had in that bachelor group. But interesting that he's with them. I think if he's with them, it could be that maybe it's a natal group, or it could be that maybe there's a cow here in estrus and he's coming in to court one of the females. I'm going to go back a little bit. We'll see if we can just get behind this bush willow and zebra wood that are obscuring the females. We might be able to see him over them, get a nice contrast in the difference. Not as stark a difference between kudu and male and female as much as there is with the Nyala bulls and ewes. Yeah, kudus. Cows and bulls are pretty much similar, except of course for the horns of the big bull. Yes, it's important to have a well-groomed tail when you're approaching the ladies, Mr. Kudu. She's playing quite the oxpecker host, that cow. Hanging on the periphery and pretending not to notice that there are at least six kudu cows in his midst. 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll be very interesting to see if there's any interaction between them, so I'm going to go forward, see if we can keep up with them for a little bit. I think total is 6 females. Wonderfully peaceful out here this afternoon. I think that this storm that's brewing in the west is making it a little bit dark, but light's a bit flat, but it's somehow there's just this calming silence almost. And it's maybe not as noisy as it is when it's sunny. Very few birds. Here are a few doves and a woodpecker. Very interesting question from Jilly in Wisconsin, referring to the many different types of antelope that we have in Africa. But Jilly's asking, are there any deer in Africa? Well, Jilly, down here in South Africa, deer are not indigenous. However, there are deer that have been introduced to some areas, and unfortunately they were brought here for hunting purposes. Something we just can't get away from. No matter where you are on the planet, there are going to be some humans that want to. Anyways, there are some fallow deer that have become feral or become wild in some places because they have escaped from their original confines, and they are now, well, running wild and free in some areas of South Africa. But generally, no. Throughout most of Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, deer are not common at all. In fact, well, they don't occur. Any deer that you might find are likely to be introduced. So deer do not occur in this sub-Saharan, south of the Sahara desert. He's a bit nervous, that bull. Wonder why. But up in North Africa, I think in North Africa where the Mediterranean is pretty close to North Africa, I think there you might find roe deer. I think those North African countries, I know that there are some deer that occur up there, but I don't know what their status is. It's almost like a different continent for me, up in North Africa. Anyways, we're going to go back to Scott and see what he's up to. I think he's at Buffelshoek Dam still, so we'll cross over to Scott.
Welcome back, and what a beautiful setting it is here at Buffelshoek Dam this evening. It's a wonderful, still evening. There's not a breath of air, and we've managed to reposition ourselves. So now you can take a closer look at the crocodile from another angle, and you'll notice as we zoom in, sadly, this is not a crocodile that's missing any of the end of its tail. It all seems fully intact, so not one of the individuals that either Inga or Teresa know of, sadly. Sharon in Austria, good evening. Sharon's interested to know how one would sex a crocodile. And like most reptiles, I think the only way to be able to sex it easily would be to actually investigate by probing its cloaca, and that way being able to establish whether it's a male or a female. So it's very difficult to tell just from looking at them, as far as I'm aware. And it's the same for snakes and lizards. It can be very difficult to distinguish, unless, of course, the males and females have got sexual dimorphism in their coloration. What a beautiful animal, though. And it would be wonderful to be able to run your hands over that skin. It would be an incredible feeling. Just got an observation and a question that it is from Gail. Good evening, Gail. Gail's saying that it's interesting that it's all on its own, and why would it be alone? They're usually together. And I think the main reason why it would be alone is potentially there was too much competition for feeding. That, or potentially it was moving between small waterholes that dried up. Now, a small waterhole would make a great ambush position because it wouldn't have to move big distances in order to be able to sneak up to its prey, and it can almost lie in wait in one position where it knows game will most often drink. But that may have dried up, and that may have been a reason why it's had to move off. And I'm sure at stages it will seek out other crocodiles for mating purposes. But animals' fundamental goal is to try and feed themselves. That's the primary thing that they need to worry about, is feeding, and therefore will go wherever it takes to get good feeding. So I think that's the main reason why it's come here. And who knows, maybe another will join it hopefully in the coming weeks. Just got another question through from John. Evening, John. John's interested to know what would happen if there was a hippo in this waterhole, and I'm fairly confident there was one here. There was one here the first time I saw the crocodile a few days ago, and they typically do ignore one another. They cannot feed on one another. The hippo's far too big for the crocodile to kill, and the hippo knows this. Therefore the hippo will feel safe, and the crocodile will not pester the hippo. And you often find crocs and hippos living side by side, often in very confined spaces, especially as waterholes dry up. And they do tolerate one another because, like I say, the crocodiles don't pose a threat to hippos, and hippos don't pose a threat to crocodiles. So that would obviously change if a hippo did have a very young calf, and they would alter their behavior, understandably. Well, that was beautiful seeing the woodlands kingfisher swoop down to have a bath just in front of the crocodile, and VM's doing a great job on camera here. Just got another question through from Marianne on Twitter. Good evening, Marianne. Marianne's interested to know whether, if this is a female, would she nest here? And yes, there's no reason why she wouldn't nest at this waterhole that I can think of. So there certainly is a chance that she could nest here, if it is a female, of course. So there were the 3 buffalo bulls you saw briefly, and it was just right directly across from us now where VM's got the camera, where Quarantine was lying. And now as he pans further to the left, we were stuck in the bushes on the edge of that peninsula when we were filming the crocodile earlier, just to give you an idea of exactly where we were. Oh, it looks like it's going to go back into the water. Or was it just a tiny little movement there? What are your plans, Mr. Crocodile? It's incredible how broad and thick that tail is, packed with muscles, and that will be its primary tool that it uses to propel itself out of the water at incredible speeds and then latch onto their prey with those incredibly powerful jaws. Marsha from Kentucky, good evening. Marsha is interested to know whether the crocodile has webbed feet, and if so, does it make tracking them easier? Well, they do indeed have webbed feet which aid in them swimming, but in terms of us tracking them, their tracks are very, very noticeable, and there's nothing quite like a crocodile track, so it's not a difficult animal to track if you do come across their tracks on the edges of waterholes, or in this individual's case, he would have crossed some of the road networks on his way here, and it would be interesting to know if any of the guides and trackers did pick up on the crocodile's tracks, because it would be very interesting to see its tracks crossing the road in the middle of an area nowhere close to water. Well, my predictions for the elephants to come streaming in here this evening have been completely wrong. So, well, up till this stage, they could surprise us and all come charging in a bit later on. But so far, it's interesting, there's been nothing that's come to drink. And as VM's showing you now, there's some impressive clouds building up on the western horizon, some serious cumulonimbus clouds, and with a little bit of luck they'll bring us some rain. Usually the weather doesn't come from the west, but we'll take it from any direction we can get it from at this stage. It's very dry. So not only is it providing us with some beautiful scenery and sights, but hopefully with some much needed water. Well, there's another vehicle arriving here at Buffelshoek Dam to enjoy the spot. Well, I think it's just about time that we head off and search for some other animals. This crocodile doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So we're going to venture on, and it's a wonderful stage of the evening now, because we know that they could well be on the move, a lot of the predators now, as it's cooled down and as darkness begins to set in. So it's a good time for us to be driving around, and hopefully we're going to intercept one of them along the way. Tracks have been all likely at quarantine, and he crossed out of our property to the south, sadly on my vehicle tracks from where myself and Romeo were searching for him yesterday. So he did pass by down the drainage line at the Mulwati, or in the Mulwati, trail timing was off, so we missed him. And VM actually spotted his tracks as we were driving through the riverbed this afternoon. Any luck, Nicky? Mark for Scott. So I've been hoping to bump into a female leopard called Tingana that I think spent some time in this area. We've seen tracks of her and seen one sighting of her cubs not far from here. So I'm hoping I'm going to bump into her. Every time I come to Buffelshoek Dam, she comes to mind because it's a leopardess that I've yet to see, and we've seen so few female leopards since we've been here. Wonderful news, thank you. Well, there's some good news. Nicky's just let me know that Mark is on the trail of a leopard, and we're going to leave him to focus on trying to find that leopard, and who knows, maybe he'll get lucky. As we drive down this road, you may notice a lot of leaf litter, quite fresh green leaves in the road, as well as a lot of big brown balls, which are elephant dung. There were a lot of elephants in this area, and as we pass along here, you can see a lot more fresh leaf matter in the road that the elephants have been dropping as they go along. They're quite messy feeders. And there's often quite a bit of waste, because you may find that they'll snap off the whole branch just to access a small piece of bark, and the rest of the leaves and the branch they'll discard. But it's a very necessary destruction, and without the elephants here, this vegetation would be impenetrable, and therefore also not be suitable habitats for a lot of the smaller herbivores and other mammals that live here. A white-crowned helmet trike, white-crowned trike that I was hoping was going to stay put in a small bush, but it fluttered off just as I decided to stop. Another thing I've been wondering over the last few days, or 2 days, yesterday and today, is where that male cheetah's ended up. Wouldn't it be wonderful to know where he was now and what he's been up to? And I'm just hoping the fact that he did at least pass through our property, that he may have found some areas that he thought he quite fancied and intends on coming back here at some stage, because they're such wonderful animals and will really be great to have another character on the show. Apologies, I just dropped the lid for my water, which I need to find. There it is. No rush at all. Questions coming through on the crocodile, so while we drive around in search of something else to chat about, I think it's a good opportunity to keep discussing the croc. And people are interested to know whether crocodiles are territorial and whether they'll fight with other crocodiles for water, especially if it dries up. Yes and no. Crocodiles will most often compete, as far as I'm aware, when there's breeding opportunity, and therefore males will compete with other males. Females will also protect small territories and especially their nesting site very ferociously. But what's important to know is that it's not uncommon for crocodiles to live in very large congregations together. So it's just maybe at certain times, like I say, mating seasons and or periods when females are giving birth, they may be more likely to be territorial to some degree. Mark is still on the trail of the leopard, so things are looking promising there. And he's just spending this time focusing on the task at hand. So that's just an update from him. And let's all just hold thumbs that he does get lucky with his mission this afternoon. just got a question through from Ginny on Twitter. Good evening, Ginny. Ginny's interested to know whether there's any evergreen trees in Africa. And yes, there certainly are. Not all of the trees will lose their leaves in the dry season. Jackalberries or ebony trees won't. Brown ivories won't, I don't think. Weeping boerbean won't. So there are certainly a host of trees that will not lose their leaves and will stay green throughout the winter period. Brenda in Pennsylvania, good evening. Brenda's interested to know what I think about the changes of season out here, and I guess what benefits one season may have over another. I'm personally loving this change from summer to winter. I do prefer the winter period, so the transition from summer into winter is my favorite as opposed to winter into summer. So I'm loving the changes of scenery and love the changes of color as it begins to dry out, and it also does become easier to track animals as it becomes drier. So a number of different reasons why I prefer the winter. It also allows you to take longer game drives if you do have guests, because you're less controlled by the harsh African sun, which can be incredibly hot in our summer. So I'm personally loving the changes of season, Brenda, and I hope you're enjoying the changes that you're witnessing as well as you follow the show and as the vegetation does change out here. Well, it sounds like Mark's found something else in the meantime that's worth taking a look at, so we're going to cut across to Mark and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Hardly need an introduction. Some very special animals of Africa, only in Africa, and a number of things. Lion, leopard occur in India, although not too many lion left in India. Look at that foal drinking, or trying to. Very pretty. We're over at Arathusa airstrip, and I was hoping we would find something here. wildebeest lying down in the distance. Well, one or two impala further back. And a nice young, or nice small family group of zebra. Stallion, 2 mares and a foal. And I'm really pleased to have them because it's nice to have giraffe and zebra in the same drive. Sorry, what was that, Nikki? Okay, copy. Just to let you know, folks, if any of you are interested, or whoever's doing zooming at Arathusa at the moment, we were on the way to Arathusa. Well, we're on Arathusa, but we're on the way to go and see Tingana. Unfortunately, there are a lot of vehicles that are waiting to see Tingana, so we sort of, as we call it, in the lineup to see him. But I believe he's just arrived at Arathusa Dam. We are on the airstrip, some distance away, hoping that we can get a chance to go in and see him. But at the moment, as it is, it's not looking too good. A number of vehicles on standby, and at least one consolation is that we have the camera at Arathusa, and I hope that camera at Arathusa, the Arathusa Dam camera, is working, and that maybe you'll be able to see him. They're saying pass on that. I think we're going to move up a little bit. It's getting dark. We're sort of heading into post-sunset dusk, a time when certain animals go to bed and some animals wake up. It's a special time where there are some animals that only use this time of the day to either hunt or to be active. Unfortunately, we don't have too many of them. That's the stallion on the left, the lovely big stallion, and I'm going to try and have a look at him to see if I can recognize any part of him. He's taken a better interest in me now that I've come closer to his mares. Let's see if I can get a closer look with my binoculars. He's a magnificent man, but Well, I don't know, if I had to see more of him to see if I could recognize any scars or any marks, but I'm not recognizing anything on of his stripes, really. It might be a herd, a small family that we don't know about. Grace wants to know if the zebra are related to horses, because I called him a stallion. I did indeed. Why are you shouting at me, children? Mare just shouted, and yes, so a stallion, a mare, and a foal. In fact, we have a stallion, 2 mares, and a foal. And yes, Grace, they are related to horses. In fact, they're so closely related. They are, if you could imagine a kudu and a nyala, the relationship between a kudu and a nyala is the same relationship between a horse and a zebra. Equus. The equines, the equids. Sadly getting dark, and I don't want to put any lights on them, especially because there is a foal. Let's just go up to this mare with the foal and we'll look at her. Just elephants so far. Just elephants so far at Arathusa waterhole. They've just said over the radio that he's making his way towards the water. But yeah, sorry about that. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm copying. Go. Okay, copied. How close is it to Mighty? Okay, copied. Thanks. I'm still quite a way away. I'm on the other end of the airstrip at the moment. Okay, copied. Thanks. He evidently is drinking at the moment, right at the moment, but I don't know, maybe he's out of sight of the camera, maybe he's way off to the side. My guess is that if you, from the camera, he would be far to the right, because he was coming in from this side of the lodge, so he would have come in on the northeastern eastern to northeastern side of the dam. So we're going to start making our way. Hopefully we'll get to see him. But we can't stay with... I can see the vehicles at the dam now. Okay. Hopefully we'll get to be there soon enough. I was told to make my way a little bit closer, so we'll do that. We'll turn around here at the bottom of the airstrip and we'll try and get closer to that sighting. Looking at the sky now that we've turned around, looking back into the north and the northwest, we can see two storms as Jason pans a little bit further to the west, and those are probably the two thunderheads we saw building there as we first storm there, now in the middle of the screen, and then the second storm just behind it. Tingana. Quite correct, everyone. It is Tingana that is there. I hope we're going to get to see him. I was hoping we could get here in daylight, but unfortunately it is quite a popular sighting at the moment. And I think because it's Arathusa, only 2 vehicles at a time, so perhaps until I get there, maybe we can go back to Scott. I'm just keeping track of everybody. Nikki's saying that it might look strange that I've got this device, but it is. This is my map of Arathusa, and I'm trying to, rather than come in behind them, think of a way that maybe I can get around the dam. But yeah. Mickey, I'm hardly hearing you coming through about 2 out of 5. Okay, go ahead. Okay, I'm making my way south on the air, or rather north on the airstrip now, coming up into Arathusa driveway. I'll stand by closer to the lodge. Fat in the Netherlands, I think I'm not really getting that clear very well. Sorry. Edgeways. I'll get to Geert's question in a minute. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to be on the radio for a little bit because it's very busy at this sighting and I need to respond to that. It's very hard for me to answer questions right now and respond to... Sorry. Mark, go ahead. radio is so bad. Try again when I get closer. They are calling me, nobody's copying me. I hope we can get into the sighting. Chat is asking, I didn't copy that, please go again. Yes, if you could do that, please, that would be good. Nikki, I'm going to turn your volume down in a bit. Problem is it's in front of the lodge. You're going to see 3 of us on the vehicle. I don't even know if we've crossed.
Welcome back and good evening. We are currently working the area where Mark last had some tracks of Karula. It is on our northern boundary. And apologies, Mark was battling to copy Nikki's messages at the end there, so he's just going to be busy working on his radio and seeing if he can fine-tune a few things, and I'm sure we'll cut back to him once he's resolved his radio issues. And like I say, we are in the area where Mark had tracks of Karula, so we are just driving through here slowly, hoping to bump into her or anything else of interest. I thought I'd seen a snake in that tree, which got me very excited. Question through from Gert in the Netherlands. What's that down there? Can you tell? Oh, it's a duiker. A little duiker. I just saw its eyes reflecting. So Gert is interested to know whether the larger herbivores, buffalo, elephant, zebra, wildebeest, will move out of the Sabi sands during the dry season as food becomes less and less, and they certainly will, Gert, and that is the beauty of the Kruger National Park and the Greater Kruger National Park, which we form a part of as the Sabi sands. There's no fences between us and the Kruger, so animals have freedom to move, and they will seasonally migrate and move to areas where there is more food. And we can already notice that just on the Djuma property. In the summer we had many wildebeest, and now we're only left with a few of the lone bulls that are not pressured as much to move huge distances in search of food for many miles to feed. They just have to worry about themselves. So other than a few lone bulls, there's very few wildebeest and or zebra on the Djuma property, whereas just a few months ago there were lots. So Liam has just spotted something. He's also got a torch that he's shining. Oh. Yeah, it's another duiker. Well spotted though. Now, those of you who might be wanting to see the duiker, apologies, we will typically avoid shining the spotlights on herbivores' eyes, but here's an animal that we can shine the spotlights on. And I'm actually just going to stay here That's a big chameleon nestled up in this combretum tree, and if VM just zooms out a little bit, you'll notice how I've seen it. It's a paler shade to the rest of the leaves and a very distinctively different shape that is not uniform with the rest of the shapes in this tree. So you're looking for the shape of that chameleon, which is very characteristic of this specific species, and also the lighter shade relative to the rest of the bush that it's sitting in. But the chameleon's okay to shine on at night, but daytime animals, mainly herbivores, but also a few predators, including wild dog and cheetah, we will not shine the spotlights on at night because it does blind them, and therefore makes it very difficult for them to be able to regain their night sights. And we don't know if a leopard's going to come around the corner in the next few minutes, and it would be terrible to leave any animal standing there completely blinded, not knowing what predators are looming about. Okay folks, well it sounds like Mark's resolved his radio issue, so let's go back to him and see what he's been up to, and myself and Vim will continue the search for Karula. See you later.
Welcome to Arathusa Safari Camp, Safari Lodge. Welcome to another exciting part of this Harvey Sands.
Yeah, it's a very special part in New England, National Geographic out there as well.
A big male leopard who abuts the territory of the wonderful big male that we've been seeing of late, another leopard called a Mbula. This is a big male who rules the roost in this part of the world. His name is Tingana. And he has been seen today with Karula's daughter, Shadow, and her cub. He was seen with her this morning. Probably the father of her cub. Doesn't make much difference putting my last one. We're now viewing him by the light of the game drive vehicles. Oh, this is going to be beautiful. Unbelievable.
We're also reflecting in the water as well. The prints of darkness. I'm talking about all the old God. It depends, because he is territorial. He's got a very big territory here. Basically, the whole Arathusa farm territory. Doesn't go too or south. Hello, roep iemand my. It's a lullaby in Susan Marty, so that is right. There's someone behind the Stefan, the first one. Okay, Stefan. Middag my vriend, waar is jy nou?
Tweet coming in from Susie. Hello Susie. Susie's asking if this is the male that we had in the tree with the aardvark a little while ago. Yes, it is, Susie. It is indeed him. And here, hippo making quite a splash in the dam off to our right. He's evidently had two aardvark, and Liam from one of the managers of another lodge neighbouring Arathusa was telling me he was actually with him one evening when he actually made his first aardvark kill, or first aardvark that was seen. I think there was some confusion because someone mentioned that he had taken 4, when in fact he's taken only 2 according to the guides, and maybe the difference of posting, whether it was either local guides here or maybe it was guides from Nkoro that posted the same incidents, and it appeared that it was 2 different incidents. But as far as I know, he's only been seen having done it twice. But Liam lucky enough to have actually seen him catch the aardvark, a very unusual prey item.
Other guys also chant to this beautiful animal, still drinking water and stuff like that. Is everyone fine with that? Alright, fantastic. Give up. Maak die pad weer te gaan uittrek hoor. So hy moet sodra jy op die hoop area kom wat jy uittrek. Until the other guy gets here, then pull out. But that's what I said, that will move too far tonight. Like a big Sunday afternoon lunch, you need to do it. So you don't just lie in front of you. Or in your car. Or why in your car? No, in your car. Oh, in my car. I thought you're going to McDonald's and eat it in your car. Quite dense the weight. He's very thirsty, eh? Happy hour at the bar. Very, very nice.
Marsha wants to know if there's some comparison between him and Mvula. They're about the same size. I'd say that... hard to tell, Marsha, but I'd say that Mvula's probably a little bigger. I'm not too sure. Someone asked a question a few minutes ago what his history is, how long he's held sway here. I'm not too sure, because having only come back recently to the Sabi Sand, but more importantly, I've only been able to come onto this area in the last few months, so I'm not too familiar with his history. I should be by now, and I know I've read things, but I don't retain information like I used to. But I'll certainly look into that. Interesting question from John. I'm not so sure where John is. John's saying thought Tingana and Shadow were brother and related, both cubs of. In a way, you're right. Only by name. Unfortunately, I'm gonna just have to get back to that in a bit. We've got to concentrate on what he's going to be doing. John is in South Carolina, and hopefully he lies down and he's going to relax for a while. He looks pretty well fed. Looks like he's probably had a kill recently. Yep, here we go. Pussycat. John was asking about Karula's cubs. Now, Karula's first litter of cubs were two females who each had two different names, because Wild Earth, I think, jumped the gun a little bit at the time and named them. And then of course there's the traditional way of naming cats here in the Sabi Sand. The guides name the cats, and so the names that the guides assigned to the two cubs were obviously the names that are still being used today. And there was a very short time that we as Wild Earth were using different names, and it did become confusing because the one cub was called Tingana, but it is confusing because this male is called Tingana. But that is a cub from 2006, if I'm not mistaken. So it would be going on about the same age as Tingana now, maybe. Oh, there's a big tree behind you, dude. Shadow was actually the leopard we called Tingana, and her sister was Tandi. How much water? I can't answer that, I'm afraid. How much water will he drink tonight? I have no idea. Shadow and Tandi are the names of the two leopards that were. Now, Shadow was called Tingana, so on a day like today we would have had Tingana and Tingana, strangely enough, because she was also known as Tingana. The other sister. Oh, sorry, it's getting so much noise in my ear. It's so hard to concentrate on what I'm saying. Almost impossible. Now that the volume is down. Shadow's sister is Tandi, and if I'm not mistaken, she was also known as Saseka. But Saseka didn't stick the same as Tingana didn't stick, so the names reverted to Shadow and Tandi. So those were the two cubs. Those were Karula's first two cubs before she had mission in Djuma in 2008. And then 2010 she had Shivambalana and Shivinzi. 2012 was Quarantine and Djuma. Rather funny hippo noises from the back. It's not Jason, I promise you. It's hippo. Brenda and Kim are both asking if the hippo will stay in the water because of the leopard or because of the vehicles. Neither, Brenda. No, the hippos live right here next to the lodge. They're fully familiar with the life that goes on around them. And we are in a very, very tiny little spot on a very large dam, and there's ample space for the hippo to get out of the water. But they will still exit the water and go and graze this evening. Okay, the screen's going to go dark for a minute while vehicles, you're not losing picture, we've just got a dark screen at the moment. We will be putting lights on shortly. Bye. See if it maybe doesn't really make a difference. Nikki, sorry, I'm not copying you at all. Suzanne in the Netherlands. Oh, okay. That was the commotion this morning. Thanks, Suzanne in the Netherlands. Suzanne or Susanna. Saying that, well, I know that they were together this morning. I do recall the commotion on the radio when they were talking about him being with Shadow and her cub. And he evidently stole an impala kill from her. This was evidently on her Facebook page. Remember, this is the Sabi Sand. These leopards are very well known. Most of them have their own Facebook pages, but there is also collective page, the Leopards of the Sabi Sand, as there is for lion, cheetah, wild dog, and just much the same back home in the Timbavati. We have Facebook pages for all the cats up there. So often what we might not hear on the radio gets posted on their Facebook pages, and it's a way for us to keep up, or for you the viewers to keep up with these cats. Really not sure how much he will drink tonight. I mean, I wouldn't even dare quantify it. I don't know what he's been eating. I don't. It's an unknown variable in the life of a leopard. But it seems he's quite happy to lie here in the clay. This is where the water is receded, so it's quite hard packed. It's probably very cool, especially being in the dip. It's been quite a hot afternoon, and he's quite a comfortable cat at the moment, as flat as he can be. Why does he, I don't know who the question was from, but Grace, okay. Why does he tolerate the light? Well, once again, Grace, a question why. Only really the leopard knows why, but he's accustomed to it. It's a part of his life, though. The lodges themselves have huge floodlights in front of them. Most of the camps do, yet the leopards still choose to walk into the light to drink. Those of you who are able to see Arathusa Dam, you'll see that there are lights, much as there are at Gowrie Dam. He tolerates the light. It's no real big deal to him. It's a brief period of time. Also, if there is bent, I haven't been able to use any of my lights because we're using the light from the game drive vehicles at the moment since we got here. It does give a really nice effect having a side light on him. Some of the vehicles brighter lights than others. But he could quite easily get up and disappear into the darkness, and he has done so in the past. And every leopard has done it at some time. When they get fed up with vehicles, they get fed up with everything, they can turn around and walk away and lose the vehicles in a heartbeat. And as long as the vehicles keep a distance, and as long as they're not crowded by vehicles, and this is one of the reasons why we have such limitations to the time spent as well as the number of vehicles with an animal, give them a lot more freedom than may be imagined by a few minutes of viewing. Nicky, he's not going anywhere in the immediate future. I don't know if you want to maybe cross to Scott for him to say goodbye and then he can come back to us till the end. Bye, and I'll stay with him, and hopefully he'll still be here for us to say goodbye in a short while.
Welcome back, and we've had no joy finding Karula, but we did find something very, very interesting. And It's a bird's nest, a bird called a crowned lapwing, and my plan is to head back there first thing in the morning and show you all the very interesting nest that it has. But at night we were lucky enough to find it, but didn't want to distress it or give away the location of that nest to any animals, so again that's why we didn't get a link from Nikki to show you. We'd rather wait till the morning, and I certainly look forward to that. Other than that, Liam spotted a few bush babies, but it was very thick bush and they sprung off before we could even think about asking for a link. And really happy that you've had a wonderful sighting of Tingana, and we really have been spoiled with some incredible leopard sightings over the last few drives. I know that we saw a quarantine male drinking yesterday morning, Karula drinking last night, now Tingana drinking this evening, so 3 different sightings of leopard drinking out of 4 drives. So that's really fortunate, because it's not just seeing an animal, it's the quality of the sighting that you're having with them, and to see a leopard drinking is always something that's quite wonderful to see. Excuse me. Well, you may wonder why I'm shining high up in the trees. That's because I'm looking for owls, as well as other animals like genet, which is a small nocturnal cat-like animal. As well as leopard, of course. They like to climb up trees, especially the trees that I'm shining in now, which are marula trees. It's the leopard's favorite tree to sleep in this area, and that's because they've got very thick horizontal branches which make for comfortable platforms on which to sleep. Well folks, from myself and Vim, thanks so much for following this afternoon's drive, and well done to Mark for getting you some great visuals of Tingana, and again thanks to Nikki in the final control. And I will be out tomorrow morning, just 1 vehicle in the morning, so I'll be out and look forward to being out with Romeo again. So we'll see you in the morning, and over to Mark in Tingana.
Sorry, go again? Okay, copied. I'm going to be leaving shortly. I'll stay here till you get here. Hello everybody. Well, we are obliged to leave Tingana sleeping because there are guests back in the lodge already, and there are going to be other guests coming back to the lodge. We're in front of the camp. There is one of the local vehicles coming in for a quick look, and we're going to stay here just briefly. As soon as he starts coming in, I'm going to leave. And well, his kind of like mercury flowed into the contours of the dried clay and mud that he's lying in. Very relaxed cat. He doesn't look like he's going anywhere much this evening. But he's also in a position where if anything does come down, he'll, from his vantage point, he'll be able to see things. be very interesting to know what has transpired since well, overnight while we were away tonight. So panting a little bit because he's full of impala that he stole from, I suppose, his Amor. It would be like Mvula stealing a kill from Karula. The way he stole an impala from Shadow this morning. Yeah, was coming to see him. I'm going to have to come soon because in a couple of minutes no vehicles are going to be allowed out front here anymore. Station coming to Tingana. What's your eat here? Okay, Lungies. Confirm better friends. Which cats are better friends? Dennis in Valencia. Oh, roll over, pussycat. None of the cats are friends. Dennis in Valencia. None of the cats are friends. The cats are arch enemies. They pretty much all compete for the same food, and their territories or home ranges do overlap. And being in competition such as they are enemies, and they will kill each other if the chance arose. So unfortunately, friendship doesn't really come into it as far as the cats are concerned. Okay, we're going to get ready to move because this vehicle that is coming in now will be the last one that will be allowed here, since it is a local vehicle, and I need to vacate territory. We're going to be driving home, have a bit of a night drive for the next few minutes as we head up back towards Djuma. And oh. On the horn. Okay, bye.
I don't know where it is.
I just had to put lights out there, and it was pointing straight at the people on the vehicle. I couldn't do that, so I had to put the lights out. It was some strange moments, but anyways, we'll see you tomorrow morning. My name is Mark. Jason's been on camera. Thanks to Scott. Thank you, Scott and Viam on the other vehicle. Thanks to Nikki in final control. We've got a bit of a ways to go to get home, and we will see you first thing in the morning. Thanks for joining us on Wild Earth, and thanks for all the participation and questions. I hope we continue tomorrow. Love you lots. Bye bye.